All right. We are finishing up week 6 for Intro Networks. This is day 11. Can you believe it? Of course you can. It's Friday. NET-200, Introduction to Networks. Today we did some more on Ethernet, worked in labs as a group, and we talked about next week, probably Friday, we'll have some type of assessment on Unit 1. And I'm thinking chapters 1 through 4. Alright, about that more on Monday. So today, this was the switch setup. We had all these devices. Device 8 was the one I configured, and the rest of the students each had a device. So they were to get a device, their switch, give them an IP number, and we used 10 more than the IP number for their PC. Does that make sense? So this switch was 1 and 11. This switch would have been 2 and 12 and so forth. So everybody configured their switch and they put a workstation on it. I put a workstation on, but I used DHCP from the router here and I adjusted it. Here's the default gateway, that's the address right here on the router. And then the network connected in to the switch here on campus, to the multi-layered switch, to the router, to the multi-layered switch, and out to the internet. Okay, before we started on the switches, we had to clear them. We had to delete VLAN.dat, we had to erase the startup, and we reload it. Okay, and for this network, we talked about the IP addressing, it would all have to be on the same network. So this is what we use. The /24 gives us this particular subnet mask. Alright. We talked a little bit about IP addressing, but we focused mainly on Ethernet and a little bit of routing going out to the internet. Okay, so that was the setup. Yeah, it gets a little more complex here. So we added some things to this setup. I added the internet and these routers switching packets through. When the students got out the internet, they checked they're using this address on the internet. And we talked about the process. I'm not going to go through all the details right here, but we talked about the process. We used an example. We used, let's just use this machine here. If this PC was going to go out to a website, its information, we're going to go into the switches, and it's going to have, it's going to use an address out on the internet. Well, that address isn't local, so it's going to use this default gateway, so it's going to use the MAC address for this default gateway that's in the switch. I mean the PC that's in the PC. Let's be a little more detailed here. So then so it works its way down and it goes into the router here. Then the router matches up the IP with the MAC address. Then it gets rid of the MAC address, and then it doesn't know where this is out on the internet, out here. And we'll show this again here in a minute. So then it defaults in here to this multi-layered switch. It looks for the address. It doesn't have it. So it defaults to the router here. This router converted the address to this internal network, which was a 172.20.0.0/16. When it gets here, it gets natted then to the outside address, and then it goes out to the internet. And at each place, the NAT keeps track of the matchup to the outside address to the inside address. And then the same thing happens here. This address, whatever it was for one, in fact, I could tell you, it was 172.21.14. And so when it comes back here, it's matched with this address. So it makes the change here. And then here, it finds the MAC address that's matched there and sends it back into the network. Wow. Okay, let's go with this. So the address we were trying to get to was, we went michaeldirksen.com. DNS then gave us this address that matches that. So that was the destination address when we started here. But you can see how the source address changed once here to the 172, then changed here to this address. And once it's on the internet, you know, let's say here's michaeldirksen.com, eventually when it gets there, when it sends it back to this address, okay, which sends it to NIACC. And then when it gets here, that address is matched up here with that 172. Gets down to here, it's matched up with this address, which then gets the MAC address put on it. And when it goes into the switches, these switches have now learned all the MAC addresses of everything that's connected to them. And we looked at that in the lab. We, the students, looked at their MAC addresses in their switches. This whole configuration is still there. So you could log into it remotely if you want to look at it. All the different devices. The router's device 20. This and the devices for the switches are all listed there, and so forth. We reviewed the layers, right? We talked about, you know, that URL coming down, it's TCP, get a segment, packet, frame. Talking about source and destination port numbers. All right. Well, that's enough for this week. We're going to use this configuration, and we need to start looking at the next chapter. Okay, you need to move on to the next chapter, which I think is IP addressing, which will tie right into this. It must be chapter 6. So you can start reading that, and then we're going to, hopefully, we're going to take our configuration and we're going to connect wireless to the configuration and see, you know, now it won't be much different, but we'll take a look at that. So we'll do that, a little bit of that on Monday. We'll get started with a number of things on addressing for chapter 6, and we'll also talk about the first unit exam. Okay, that's it.